75% of people think real estate agents aren't very trustworthy. The only way to change that perception is to change the reality. If you're looking for a career where integrity matters and you can guide others through tough, high-stakes decisions, come join us at Story Real Estate and help drive that 75% down to zero. I'm Chris, the owner and founder. Let's see if we have a career you'll love.
Hey, y'all. It's good to talk about Texas again. Like it's been too long because the Texas Rangers are in the World Series, and we got Mark Dewey on to talk about it.
That's exciting.
Welcome to Cross Politics on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox, I'm the Water Boy, and our probably the best voice on the Fight Laugh Feast Network, Mark Dewey, is with us.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Guys, I just realized I feel a little bit funny about this because when is this show going to air? Because the World Series is like going on right now.
Yeah, I know.
Like tonight's game 4
Yeah.
of the World Series, and like it could be over in 2 days. Like, I mean, just saying, like somebody's
Game
going to
4. How could it be over in 2 days?
Producer's going to figure it out. All right. Well,
If they win, if the consecutive wins would get it over.
You have to win 4 games out of 7 and you win. So I'm just saying, like somebody's got to figure this out. But anyways, whatever day this is, if you're a fan of Cross Politic or the Fight Laugh Feast Network, then surely you know we have a merch store, right? Rowdy Christian Merch is your one-stop shop for everything Cross Politic merchandise. We got T-shirts, hoodies, hats,
Baseball caps.
They owe me a hoodie.
but you've got so many hoodies.
I know.
But they owe me another hoodie.
You got like your own closet just for hoodies.
You show up in the studio with another hoodie.
I need one more.
Yeah.
Ask me how many more I need after that.
Okay, I will.
Just one.
They've got hoodies. They've got hats, baseball hats. We've got specialty items like backpacks, mugs, coffee, even AirPod cases. Visit Rowdy Christian Merch at rowdychristian.com and buy that next gift or a little something for yourself. Hey, it's not too early to start buying gifts for, Thanksgiving gifts, Halloween gifts.
Yeah. Reformation.
Post-Reformation Day.
Reformation Month gifts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Semper Reformanda. Again, that's rowdychristian.com, rowdychristian.com. As Gabe mentioned, we're very grateful to have with us online here with us our good friend Mark Dewey.
Yes.
Mark Dewey is a former Major League Baseball pitcher with the San Francisco Giants,
Dusty Baker,
New York Mets, Pittsburgh Pirates. He's now husband, father, Renaissance man, and the host of In the Bullpen.
Yes.
Which is the baseball podcast. If you didn't know we had a baseball podcast on the Fight Laugh Feast Network, you're not paying attention. But Mark,
I'm telling you, it's the best voice on the network.
I don't watch baseball, but I listen to Mark.
Okay.
I do. That's
Mark,
fact.
That's true.
Thanks for coming back on the show, man.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys again.
So I wanted to we want to start by just like we do want to get to the World Series
and the pennant.
Yeah. Thanks, Gabe.
I don't think that's right.
But I'd like to zoom out just a little bit with you as we kick this off. I mean, what's your big picture take on the 2023 Major League Baseball season? What are some of your big takeaways? I guess just in terms of the baseball being played. I'm also interested on your take on the new rules.
Yeah,
Touchdowns scored.
The shot clock for the pitcher. I want to hear about that.
I'm still frankly a little bit bitter about some of those changes. But big picture, what's your takeaways? Big takeaways from the 2023 Major League Baseball season?
Well, let's start with the rules. I'm not a huge fan of them either. I did anticipate that the pitch timer, I've called it a pitch clock, and I've noticed that MLB is not calling it a pitch clock, but a pitch timer. I was confident that that was going to increase the pace of the game and therefore increase or decrease the time of games. And I'm all for a quicker pace. I just don't like that as a means of bringing it about.
Yeah.
But it's kind of faded into the background. I've watched a number of games on TV. I did go to a Braves-Phillies game toward the end of the season. And unless you're really paying attention, it doesn't get in the way.
Yeah.
The rule that I really dislike is the 2 either disengagement or throwovers by the pitcher per at-bat.
Yeah.
So if I'm pitching and there's a good base runner, let's say Acuna Jr. is on first, and I hold for a while and deliver a pitch, I hold and I step off, I deliver a second pitch. I think he might be going. I pick over. I don't get him. I can't pick back over or step off unless I get him out. So if I either step off, which I'm not going to get him out if I step off, or pick over, and I don't get him, it's a balk. I hate that rule.
Yeah.
And I really wish they'd get rid of that. The shift thing, again, to me, a manager ought to be able to put his position players where he wants.
Yeah.
But I really do not like the disengagements. I think that the increase of the pace of play, they could remove that, and probably it wouldn't have a big impact on pace of play. Mm-hmm. So as a rule, I'm not a big fan of the new rules for this year.
Uh-huh.
And I'd like to see them go away. Again, probably the only rule, and this has been around for a little while, and they don't use it in the postseason, that I dislike more than the disengagements throwovers is starting extra innings with a runner on second base. I hate that rule.
Yeah. I can't. I totally agree.
Is the how much have the games shortened because of the shot clock for the pitcher? I think I saw, recently when I started getting engaged again because the Rangers are in the World Series, it seems like the games are down to about 2 hours now.
I think average maybe right around 2.5. I think it cut down. I haven't looked at the numbers real recently, but it had cut a good 25 to 30 minutes off a typical game.
Wow.
Very few games this year lasted over 3 hours.
Right.
So in that sense, it worked.
Yeah.
There's you can argue that it worked. And I'm all for a quicker pace. One of my pitching coaches, Ray Miller, his big mantra was work fast, throw strikes, change speeds. I think working fast and keeping the game going is advantageous to pitchers and defenses.
Right.
So I like it. I just don't like it kind of being forced on us. But some might argue it's the only way we're going to get there.
Well, do you think it has more to do with the people and less about the game itself? Is that something that's changing? Like, are the people changing? Like, you look at NFL Red Zone is a thing. Are you familiar with NFL Red Zone at all?
Somewhat. I don't follow it real close, but I'm somewhat familiar, yes.
So NFL Red Zone is basically the setup that anybody who's in the red zone, they basically show that part of the game. And they'll catch you up as things are going on, but they'll show you all of the games that are taking place, primarily
within
what is focused within the red zone. And whoever's closest to the red zone gets the main camera. And sometimes they'll go octabox or they'll go, quad box. But that's the focus. And so you're seeing every game take place, all the big plays, and inside of the red zone. So baseball, right now, the speed of the game has picked up because of the individual has changed, and less has the game changed. NFL stay the same for the most part. But, the people have changed, and so they've created a whole nother thing to allow people to watch the game differently. Is baseball in that place where they're concerned about a viewer, and so they do this to try and get more attention to the viewer, or is the game itself just changing?
Well, it's interesting. If you go back 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the game times were typically 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So they slowed way down over the last several decades. The reason why this rule was put back in place is fundamentally because people don't have a longer than 10-second attention span.
Right.
So it really is for younger viewers. A lot of the rule changes really are all about trying to attract viewers. And I guess I wouldn't say I'm opposed to that. The issue I have is, okay, we're attracting viewers or we're getting people in the seats, but are they baseball fans?
Right.
That's my concern is, is the younger generation going to be truly baseball fans or simply entertainment fans that will tune into baseball or go to a ball game every now and then?
So you said put this rule back in place? Did they used to have some sort of shot clock rule?
No, what I'm saying is that if you go back, if you go back 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, games were at as long as they are now with this rule, or even shorter without those rules. In other words, there's all sorts of things that have come into play. You have commercial breaks that are longer, which lengthens the games. You have walk-up music, which really kind of began toward the end of my career in the 90s. You have walk-up music, and you see that there are times in which a person is delaying, let's say, getting into the batter's box so that the walk-up song can get to a certain point. There's a lot of things that have come into the game that slowed it down. A lot of the data and analytics have slowed it down. Yeah. So it's not like we had to have the pitch timer to have shorter games because for the vast majority of the history of the game, the games are short.
Production there.
Mark, Do you think all these rule changes are going to stick? Is there any talk amongst players or managers or owners that there's going to be any more shifts this coming offseason?
I have not heard anything about changing other than Joe Madden, former Major League manager, very successful Major League manager. He has suggested basically with the pitch timer in place, they can eliminate a lot of the other rules because the pace of play with the pitch timer in place will still be what it is. And then you don't have the other rules. Yeah. I know there's a lot of people that do not like the runner at second base rule.
Right.
But I have not heard during the regular season, that started back in the COVID year of 2020.
Yep.
I've not heard that they're going to remove that. And again, it's a matter of not wanting games to go too long, in part as it regards just time, but in part as it regards pitching.
Yeah.
But I just think that that's pretty brutal if you cannot handle your pitching staff after having a 16-inning game or whatever it might be.
Right.
I think that's your problem, not the game's problem.
Mark, what were some of the other big takeaways from the season? Maybe highlights for you or surprises for you?
Well, I think the big surprise is the Diamondbacks being in the World Series. I would say it's a little bit of a surprise for the Rangers, but I would say it's a huge surprise, both from what you would have thought at the beginning of the season and even what you would have thought when the postseason started.
Right.
I mean, record-wise, the Diamondbacks were the worst team. I would say it was a bit of a surprise that the Braves were eliminated as quickly as they were.
Right.
I would say if you want to look at quote unquote big picture, I would say it was very disappointing for me to see what was lacking in Major League Baseball with all of the LBGTQ plus IA, PT, whatever, in comparison to what happened in hockey.
Yep.
It didn't take that many hockey players to say, I'm not doing this. And I don't follow the NHL that much, but I remember when one of them didn't, the media was going ballistic, saying this guy ought to be fined.
Right.
I think he was a player with the Flyers ought to be fined, etc. And the head coach and the owner, everybody backed up the player. And now all of a sudden the NHL has decided, well, you know what? We're not going to do these things anymore.
Right.
And it was, I don't know. I don't think it was 5 guys, 6 guys at the most.
Yeah. And
I was very disappointed, especially with what took place in LA, on the lack of very clear, no, this is ridiculous. So where I think 3 guys that were very, very clear about it. But come on. I mean, that's just not a hard, if you're a Christian, that's not a hard one to just publicly say that this is blasphemous.
Yeah.
And I cannot endorse this or sit by silently while this stuff goes on.
Mark, for our listeners, will you describe what happened in LA? I think that's important.
So for years now, every team but, and Gabe's going to get fired up about this, every team but the Texas Rangers has had a Pride Night.
That's right. Promised Land.
The Rangers kind of put the knife and twisted it. I think it was last year because they actually did have a Pride Night, but it was about Charlie Pride. So they actually kind of got in your face by having a Pride Night that had nothing to do with Pride Night.
Wow.
This has been going on for some years now. It's bad. But this year, the Dodgers didn't simply have a Pride Night. They honored with, I think they called it the Heroes of the Community Award. They honored a group known as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Right.
Talk about unmitigated rank blasphemy against Christ Jesus. It doesn't really get much worse than that publicly.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers honored this group. And very few players had anything to say about it. Yeah. And it's like I said, if you're not going to say anything about this, then I'm not sure what you would ever speak up about.
These are drag queens.
Yeah.
And Kershaw, Clayton Kershaw is on the Dodgers, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's been an outspoken Christian, or everyone knows he's a Christian.
Right.
And even he eventually came out with a response. Basically, the Dodgers eventually came out and said, okay, we're going to reinstitute family night now.
Yeah.
That Dodgers is kind of a result of this.
Right.
Like that was their peace offering to Clayton Kershaw and all this.
Mark, what's the play here? I mean, I've been listening to Whitlock talk about the play that the LGBTQ is moving inside of NFL. They're all inside of the staff of the DEI and all that stuff like that. What is the play for baseball? Why are they after baseball?
I think they're after 2 things. They're after major sports because of just the publicity of it. but they're also after the places where normally, historically, you would find a larger percentage of so-called alpha males than other places. Mm-hmm. And I think that if they can have the platform of a major NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, and if they, like, again, in this situation, if they can have a bunch of men who are by nature competitive, who are by nature aggressive, all of those things, be passive and let this stuff go on, let alone endorse it. I mean, endorsing is great, but I don't even think that's the big deal. Mm-hmm. If they can do this and men don't speak up, I think that's a victory for them. Wow. I don't know their motives, but I know that if I had a bunch of guys that were generally very aggressive, very outspoken, very competitive, and they tucked their tail between their legs, I would consider my side to be victorious in that.
But here's the thing. Notice what was going on. That's really good. And notice what's going on here is you got the LGBT community, small minority of community, pushing their sexual ethics on another organization.
Right.
Like they don't work for them. They don't own the NFL. They don't own NHL. They don't own the major league. But they're getting their sexual ethics like pushed into their culture and having them celebrate it on Pride Night or whatever. Right. It's incredible.
This is because religion is always public.
Yeah.
There is always a public religion. There is always a religion in the public square. The question is not whether, it's just which
Every
religion.
knee will bow.
That's right. There's always going to be a flag. There's always going to be a symbol. There's always going to be a god of the public square. And everybody realizes that we're innately religious creatures. Right. And if you remove the Lord Jesus Christ, if you remove the triune God, nature abhors a vacuum, and a God is going to fill that empty space. You cannot have an actual naked public square. It will always be adorned with the worship of some God.
That's right.
And so Christians for too long were lied to and accepted this notion of a neutral public square. And in its place has grown up this pantheon of pansexual confusion and idols, and they understand that there's a God.
Yeah.
This is the God. This is the God that the people have chosen. And I think Mark, that's a fantastic point, though. That going after the men. And getting the men to be subservient, getting the men to be quiet, at the very least, means you've won a very strategic war. But I think that's
doesn't it have to assume though that they've already successfully conquered the women, right? Because usually the enemy likes to go after the women to get to the man,
or they know that the women follow.
I mean, that's a pretty bold move to go straight after the alphas, unless Mark, the alphas ain't alphas.
Well, that's why I said what historically has been the place you find, right? And then again, if you watch a game, like if you watch the ALCS when Garcia did something that I absolutely hate and despise, as far as it took him an hour and a half to let go of his bat and then another hour and a half to run around the bases. And then he gets drilled. Now, was it intentional or not? In a regular season game, I'd say absolutely. In that situation, I don't know. But the point is you see that kind of stuff. You see men that are willing to administer discipline, if you will, if they think it's not being done right.
Yeah.
You have men willing to fight about it if they've been the one disciplined and they don't like it.
Yeah.
So there's still that there as it regards to the way they play the game. Though, again, even when I talk about that home run, whatever you want to call it, that is also far more prevalent in baseball than it had been in the past. And I think that plays into it as well. Basically, you're telling men, do whatever feels good to do. As long as you say you're not disrespecting that pitcher when you take an hour to get around the bases, or as long as you say you're not disrespecting that hitter when you shove a fake sword into your scabbard, well, then that's okay. Well, that feeds into the same thing. Then, okay, then if that's the case, then what does it matter what I do with this woman?
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't know what. Another huge story that was huge when it happened and had about 24 to 36 hours of coverage when the truth came out is Trevor Bauer.
Yeah.
The guy had his reputation, and I'm not a huge, I respect his work ethic. I'm not a huge fan of his. I don't like what he stands for.
This is
what
crazy.
He did was obviously sinful in the eyes of God, but Major League Baseball preaches consent is everything. I had to sit and watch the stinking videos year after year when I was coaching. And then because they don't like Trevor Bauer, they cost him tens of millions of dollars, destroy his reputation. And then this year it comes out the whole thing was a lie. more than a lie. It was a setup. And again, that was in the news for about 24 to 36 hours, and that's it.
So this gal went after Trevor, slept with him, and was texting her friend saying, "Hey, how should I get money out of him?" Going into knowing that she was going to go into this relationship or whatever with him. Right. Trevor slept with her. And then even after they slept together, she had a recording of her face and everything. But anyway, she later Me Too'd him, basically. Right. Said he was physical to me. He forced me, all that stuff. Right. And then 2 years later, like all this tape, lawyers hid evidence about her after recording tapes and or video evidence and all this stuff. And they got Me Too'd and just destroyed and all this. And of course, if you're a married man and you're faithful, you don't have these problems. But
right.
Well, unless you're the SBC.
Right. Okay, you can
back into the crowd.
you can ask Mark about the SBC, but first I have to read this ad. Classical Conversations supports homeschooling parents by cultivating the love of learning through a Christian worldview and fellowship with other families. They provide a classical, Christ-centered curriculum, local, like-minded communities across the United States and in several countries, and they train parents who are striving to be great classical educators in the home. For more information and to get connected today, please visit their website at classicalconversations.com. Again, that's classicalconversations.com.
Mark, I wanted to ask you, you spoke about earlier that,
about Texas Rangers. You want to ask about Texas Rangers?
Yes.
Because we got to get there. We got to get there.
Okay. I'll let you ask about the Texas Rangers. I want to ask about how you get people to engage more with baseball, because it seems like baseball historically has been one of those things that sons have handed down to their fathers. It's the only sport
fathers handed down to their sons.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Interesting.
But the way things are going these days, you don't know how the person identifies.
It's a Malachi 4 thing. We hand it back and forth to one another.
Yeah. Identity is
covenant.
In defense of chalk right there, a lot of people would argue that now the game is sons handing it down to the fathers. In other words, all the young people think that they know something that's not been discovered for 150 years, and they're teaching old guys like me what the game's really about. So you're not that.
You know what, Mark? My man coming through for your boy.
Saving him.
But fathers handed down the game to their son. That's how I know that people have enjoyed baseball.
I played because of my dad.
Yeah, right. Heavily generational sport.
It absolutely is. And I don't know any other sport that's quite like that, But right now, with the generations being so fractured, and baseball being that's what it is. How do you get people to enjoy baseball again without restoration of the family? Is that possible?
Well, I suppose you could get individuals. You wouldn't have the generational, my father handed it down to me and teaching me the game. But even in families, so even when you have families, I remember this was well over 20 years ago, sitting at a AAA game, and as soon as the final out of the inning was made, there was music blaring and all sorts of stuff going on. And I sat there and I thought, if I'm here with my 8-year-old son and I'm teaching my 8-year-old son how to keep score of a baseball game, or I want to talk to my 8-year-old son about what just happened, I've got no ability to do so because I could hardly communicate to him because of all the noise, visual noise and audio, audible noise. So there's a lot of that as well. And again, baseball is not a game that is high octane as it regards action. It is a game that has tremendous action at times, but it is a game just like the pitcher-hitter matchup is, as they say, the game within the game.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't learn those things, if you don't see the beauty of those things, then it's hard to catch, if you will, baseball fever. So the one game I went to in person this year was in Atlanta with the Braves and the Phillies. And what's so nice is, you're able to see what's going on the whole field. When you're watching on TV, you can only see wherever the TV camera is showing.
Right.
And so it doesn't have to be a major league game. It doesn't even have to be a professional game. But to be able to attend a game with your family and to show them the beauty of the game that they can't see on TV, again, whether you go all the way down to 12 and 13-year-olds, there's all sorts of stuff going on right now culturally, and therefore within baseball as part of our culture, that really is not conducive to seeing the goodness, the truth, and the beauty of the game. Mm-hmm. It's so much now about highlights, so much about what I can do, how far I can hit a ball, how hard I can throw a ball, me, I. That to me is the biggest issue. Is
the individualism.
And it's really become, now you don't see that in the two teams in the World Series, right? Good teams are teams.
Right.
Now you don't have in baseball, you don't have a Michael Jordan. And I'm not saying the Bulls were not a good team. What I'm saying is one person can't carry you like you could in the NBA.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the good teams, whether they're little league teams or major league teams trying to win a World Series, they are going to be a team. But whether it's a little league team or a major league team, they have to overcome that everything now is so driven to me, I. What's my batting average? What's my exit velocity? What's my ERA? All of those kind of things. That's got to be overcome, not only in the game, but I think for fans of the game.
So, Mark, as we're recording, we just finished Game 3 last night. Rangers up 2-1.
Yes.
Maybe I don't know when we're going to play this show, but maybe you can be a prophet.
It's gonna be interesting.
Who are you calling? What are you seeing so far in the World Series, and how do you think it's going to go down?
Well, I'm rooting. Gabe will be happy for this. I'm rooting for the Rangers. I was rooting for Houston earlier because of Dusty, but I'm rooting for the Rangers.
Yeah.
The Rangers have not lost a road game this postseason. They're 9-0 on the road.
Wow.
They play tonight on the road at Arizona.
Yep.
They play tomorrow night on the road in Arizona. If that streak continues, this thing will be over tomorrow night.
Yep.
I don't think that's going to happen. 9 for 9 is impressive in the postseason. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think Texas is going to win it. The caveat is this. I think Arizona does a great job of manufacturing runs, doing things like bunting, stealing bases, those kind of things. And Texas's biggest weakness is its bullpen, in my opinion. I still think that Texas will win, but I'm going to say Texas in 6, which means that the Rangers will win at home on Friday night.
All right. There you go. You heard it here first.
There you go. Is there anything, last question here.
I might have the last question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is there anything like unique to this season that has been fun compared to, past seasons beside the Texas Rangers?
Anything unique to the season? That's a good question. Right offhand, I don't think nothing stands out as far as on-field stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if anything jumps out at me as far as something like there's always going to be the case that when you go to a baseball game, you're going to see something you've never seen before. Yeah. That's just the nature of baseball. But nothing right offhand jumps out at me. I might be forgetting something, but
has there been a lot more steals? I know they enlarged the bases and limited some of that.
They made the bases bigger?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They made the bases bigger.
Have there been have there been a lot more steals?
Why did they make the bases bigger?
In part to increase the stolen bases. And so here's what was unique that I missed. Ronald Acuna Jr., the first player ever in baseball history to hit 40 home runs or more and steal 70 bases or more. As a matter of fact, nobody even did 40, 60.
Wow.
And Ronald Acuna Jr. is a phenomenal player and deserves all the accolades that he gets. That said, the bigger bases have a factor in it, but more importantly than that is the disengagement throwovers.
Right, the pitcher rules.
Yeah. So in other words, if somebody else that had that kind of power, Barry Bonds, had those rules,
right,
he almost certainly would have done it. But still, that's not to take away from Acuna.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal accomplishment on his part.
But I assume after 2 disengagements, the runner has a pretty significant advantage.
He has a significant advantage. The other thing he has is he's got the pitch timer.
Right.
So when he sees the pitch timer going 2, 1,
he knows he has,
especially if there've already been 2 disengagement / throwovers. But even if there hasn't been, easier to get the jump.
That's stupid.
Yeah,
that is stupid.
See,
yeah.
Now,
all right, you fully convinced me that is stupid.
I don't know. I like to see it.
Mark, I think I remember talking to you one time. Basically, you were talking about so goes baseball, so goes America.
Yeah,
like there's a cultural. You think there's a particular cultural connection between baseball and the culture of America?
I want you to answer that question, Mark, but I want you to also pitch your show and why everybody needs to listen to your show on the end of that question.
Okay. Well, basically, long ago, I don't know when, I heard Henry Van Til's statement that culture is religion externalized.
Right.
I'm assuming the three of you all believe that. I know a lot of Christians, maybe most Christians believe that.
Yeah.
Probably about 30 years ago or so, in particular, it really came to fruition when there was the baseball strike in '94, where people were complaining about this or that. And I granted, I used to be on radio, like interviews a lot at that time. And I made the statement that baseball is simply a microcosm of our culture.
Back in 94.
Yes. So in other words, I said, what you're seeing in baseball that you like, look around. You'll still see that in our culture. What you see in baseball that you dislike, look around and you'll see that's prevalent in our culture. So when you take Henry Van Til's statement and my statement, I think most Christians agree his statement is accurate. If mine is accurate, so culture is religion externalized. Baseball is a microcosm of our culture. Baseball, therefore, is a microcosm of the religion of our culture externalized. So when you're watching baseball, you're seeing a reflection of our culture, and seeing a reflection of our culture, you're seeing a reflection or the externalization of the prominent held religion, which goes back to what Toby said just a few minutes ago.
Yeah. That's why
I don't like the bases being expanded anymore in the pitch clock, because I just all saw that metaphor come to life.
You see what he's saying?
All I saw was social justice movement.
But that's why you got to watch In the Bullpen
with Mark.
Listen to In the Bullpen with Mark Dewey every week.
It's about baseball, but it's not about baseball.
Over. And so, Mark, do you got any more podcasts coming out for now that baseball season's over?
Well, I ended up, my last podcast was the day after the regular season ended. So I'm filling up, picking them back up for 2024.
Yep.
I will say that listening to my final podcast from this year, kind of at the end, kind of at the end, it gets a little bit, it's worth listening to, I think. I think it says some things that may resonate with you. But that was, I guess it was October 1st or 2nd, whatever that first Monday in October was.
And so you'll pick back up when spring training happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We call it spring training.
Preseason.
No.
Preseason.
No.
Mark, spring training.
Thank you so much, man. Go listen to In the Bullpen Pub app. You can find it there.
Download the app.
FLFPUB.com. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next time, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic. Thanks, Mark.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations, the world's largest classical Christian homeschooling community. I'm launching a new podcast, Refining Rhetoric. If you like cross politics or just listen to hear what crazy stuff they're saying today, you will enjoy Refining Rhetoric. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. I practice the 15 tools of learning by interviewing great guests, looking at current events, and talking about cryptocurrency.